This is a full story. Puppy wishes you all a happy and enjoyable story. My boyfriend is a cold and aloof young genius who absolutely hates physical contact. We've been in a relationship for years, but never done anything intimate as couples do. I thought he was just born that way, and I was ready for a platonic relationship. Until his birthday, when I drove 40 hours to see him. But what I saw, under the streetlight, was him smiling, gently tugging the ponytail of the girl beside him, and then holding her hand. At that moment, I decided I didn't want him anymore. A man who's been touched by someone else disgusts me. The usually calm and composed him went mad. On the 14th day of my Cold War with Rocky, it was his birthday. I brought the gift I saved up for months to buy from my part-time job, rubbing my numb butt from the 40-hour hard seat ride. From Florida to New York City, 2,000 kilometers. Standing under a streetlight by Harvard's field, I couldn't help but imagine Rocky's reaction when he saw me. It should be the same as always, expressionless. He'd probably nod at me indifferently. That's just how he is, like a robot without emotions. Thinking back to why we fought, I couldn't help but sigh. In the distant shadows, I saw that familiar figure. I was about to go meet him, but then I saw someone else by his side. A girl with a high ponytail, dressed in sportswear, chatting and laughing with Rocky. And Rocky. I don't think I've ever seen him look so relaxed. The girl was chattering, and he reached out, gently tugging her ponytail. The girl playfully swatted his hand. Instead of getting angry, he playfully bantered back with her. The streetlight cast a soft glow over them. A handsome boy and a pretty girl, playing around under the moonlight. It was like a scene straight out of a drama, but I felt no appreciation at all. The reason was simple. The reason we were fighting was because of Rocky's personality. The boy genius famed throughout Florida, admitted to Harvard at 17. Geniuses have their quirks. Rocky despises physical contact to an almost pathological degree. He never participates in competitive sports and avoids public transportation. In middle school, he once beat up a classmate until they were bleeding, just because the classmate touched his hand as a joke. And as his girlfriend, I'm no exception. We don't kiss, we don't hug, we haven't even held hands. On our first anniversary, under the fireworks, I tiptoed to steal a kiss on his cheek. His eyes were calm, but the quick step back he took hurt me for a long time. I kept comforting myself, thinking that's just how Rocky is. But sometimes, I couldn't help feeling a bit resentful. On Chinese Valentine's Day, my roommate announced her relationship, and the hand-holding photo she posted got everyone's blessings. I couldn't resist sending a screenshot to Rocky, jokingly saying, 3 years of dating, and we've never held hands. I must be the only one in the world. He replied with just one word, "Oh." I was angry and didn't message him for 14 days. And of course, he wouldn't reach out to me first. In the end, I calmed myself down, just like I always do. But now, after coming all this way across half of China to see him, I saw this scene. The overwhelming sense of disconnect hit me hard. A motorcycle zoomed past the girl, and Rocky instinctively pulled her behind him, holding her hand. That protective gesture sent another stab of pain to my heart. At the same time, Rocky noticed me on the other side of the street. He still had no expression on his face, but his actions paused for a moment, and then he quickly walked toward me. The girl let out a surprised "hey" and tugged on Rocky's shirt. "Rocky, why are you suddenly walking so fast?" Rocky didn't pull away, letting her tug at him. He stood in front of me, looking down. "Why are you here?" The soft light in his eyes. Until today, I thought that was his version of tenderness. I forced a smile and handed him the carefully wrapped gift. "Rocky, I came to wish you a happy birthday." Rocky was just about to take my gift when the girl beside him suddenly spoke up. "Oh no. Rocky, the reservation at the restaurant is running out of time. We're going to be late, hurry up." Rocky's hand stopped, and he was pulled forward a few steps by her. Then he suddenly paused and looked back at me. "What are you standing there for? Come on." My legs felt weak, but I subconsciously followed behind them. Still in shock, the earlier scene kept replaying in my mind. I knew I was an extra, trailing behind them, and in the front seat of the taxi, I felt like a burden. But can you really just give up on someone you've loved for so many years so easily? In the back seat, the girl was chattering away, talking about lab stories I didn't understand. Rocky responded softly. The atmosphere between them was harmonious. I couldn't help but recall the details of our time together. At first, I liked sharing fun stories with Rocky too. Even though he never responded, I kept doing it. But later, when I excitedly told him about the kittens by the dorm, he interrupted me. "Haley, do you have nothing better to do every day?" Since then, I never said a single unnecessary word to him again. Naturally, I didn't know he could be so attentive to someone else's nonsense. I gripped the handle of the gift bag tightly, the pressure making my palm ache. The overwhelming exhaustion and sadness were about to crush me. The taxi driver noticed my reddened eyes. He half-jokingly said, "Hey, don't just chat with your girlfriend. Your sister's feeling neglected. She's about to cry." The back seat fell silent. Exposed in my vulnerability, I hurriedly wiped my tears. A wave of awkwardness and embarrassment washed over me. Shortly after, the girl let out a light laugh. "Sorry, I totally forgot about you. I'm Rocky's junior, Serena, a year younger than him. But I skipped a grade, so I'm now in the same grad program under the same advisor, and will likely do our PhDs together." "And you are? What school do you go to? Which advisor? How many papers have you published? I've never heard Rocky mention you before." She smiled, but her smile was laced with mockery. So, this was Serena. To be honest, I often stalk Rocky's school forum. Rocky is quite popular at school, and there are often posts about him. Since he never shared his life with me, this was the only way I could learn about him. Serena's name often appeared alongside his. They called them the golden couple of the materials department. I've seen pictures of them together. It was from some competition, with both of them standing on the highest podium. They held up the trophy together, smiling radiantly. I admit, I was really jealous at that moment. The wind outside the window roared past my ears, while Rocky remained silent. Faced with Serena's blatant provocation, he had no intention of defending me. "I'm Rocky's girlfriend," I said softly. The restaurant was an upscale Western place, and the prices on the menu made my legs go weak. Serena skillfully ordered the dishes. Grilled steak, tomato stewed fish, fried bananas. Rocky loves them. Does Rocky really love these? I didn't know. Before becoming a genius, Rocky, like me, was just a kid from an ordinary family. When we went on dates, it was usually to small roadside eateries. On rare occasions, we'd splurge on hot pot. What's Fujian cuisine? I've never even heard of it. Serena handed the menu back to the waiter. Before he left, Rocky called him back. "Add a dish of spicy chicken." Serena turned to Rocky with a smile. "Rocky, you never eat spicy food, right?" Rocky sipped his tea without answering. Only I knew the one who loved spicy food wasn't him, it was me. Tears welled up again. Rocky was always like this. Just when I was about to give up, he'd give me a small reason to keep chasing him. Just like that time when I stole a kiss and he pulled away, but then leaned down to gently kiss my hair. The food was delicious, but I had lost my appetite. After 40 hours on the train, surviving on a single pack of biscuits to save money, I felt too tired to eat. Soon, it was midnight. Serena clapped her hands, and several waiters wheeled in a giant cake. It had 3 layers, intricately decorated, with tiny figures standing on each tier. They were dressed in lab coats. I guess they were her lab mates. On the topmost layer were 2 figures, shoulder to shoulder, smiling happily. The cake was pushed in front of Rocky, and Serena spoke up. "Rocky, happy 20th birthday." She pointed to the figures on top and added, "And I hope we, too, will stand shoulder to shoulder at the summit." A poorly timed wish. Because of that last dish, I still had a sliver of inappropriate hope for Rocky. Hope that he would reject the cake. Hope that he'd say something for me. But he simply smiled, thanked Serena, and then clasped his hands together, making a wish with sincerity. The candlelight softened his usually stern face. He had smiled more tonight than I'd seen in the past few years. Was his wish about me? Or did he wish, like Serena, that they would stand together at the peak? They were geniuses, and I was just an ordinary, poor student. The gap between us was laid bare, stark and cruel, so I believed it was the latter. As the candles were blown out and the room darkened, my feelings for Rocky seemed to dim as well. Serena clapped and cheered. I forced a smile and clapped along with her. Serena scooped a bit of cake and smeared it on Rocky's face. He simply smiled and told her to stop messing around. "Oh no. I've ruined Rocky's perfect face. To make it up to you, I'll give you a big present." Like a magician, Serena pulled out a big box from behind her and opened it in front of Rocky. When I saw what was inside, my eyes widened in shock. I instinctively pushed the box at my feet further under the table. Inside her box was a brand new computer from a famous brand. It was exactly the same as the one I had gotten for Rocky. "Rocky, your old computer is so slow. Here, I got you a new one. I didn't buy anything too expensive. I didn't want you to refuse it, so I just picked something random. Hope you don't mind." The computer she bought cost 12,999 yuan. To buy it, I had worked as a tutor at an institute for 6 months. Every weekend, I would take a 2-hour bus ride to the other side of the city to teach students, just because that institute paid 10 yuan more per hour than the ones near the university. What was my most prized possession, earned through countless hours of work and effort, was casually dismissed by Serena as something she'd just randomly picked. My hand trembled as I held the chopsticks. Serena suddenly looked at me, smiling lightly. "Hey, we haven't seen what gift Rocky's girlfriend brought him," she said, circling behind me. Before I realized it, she reached out and snatched the box from under the table. I reacted too late, scrambling to grab it back. The half-open gift box fell to the floor in the struggle. The computer I had carefully protected, holding tightly the whole time, fell to the ground with a dull thud. "Oh, sorry about that," Serena apologized, but I couldn't hear any real remorse in her tone. I crouched down to check the computer. The casing was dented, and the screen had several cracks. Pressing the power button yielded no response. Rocky crouched beside me, trying to help me up. "Haley." For the first time, I heard a hint of guilt in his voice. I pushed him away and numbly packed the computer back into the box. Then, I turned and walked out of the private room. As soon as I was out the door, I started running. Rocky finally seemed to realize what had happened. "Haley." I couldn't match his strength. He pinned me against the restaurant door. Breathing heavily, his cool fingers pressed down on my shoulder. I looked up and met Rocky's gaze, clearly seeing the shock in his eyes. His trembling hand reached up to my cheek, brushing away the wetness. Only then did I realize I was crying. So this is what it feels like to be touched by Rocky. Bitterness spread at the corners of my mouth, tears slipping down to the hollow of my neck, damp and cold. Rocky couldn't wipe away all my tears, so he just pulled me into his arms. "Haley, don't cry, don't cry." He called my name over and over, his tone panicked. In my tears, I finally became an exception for him, but no longer the only exception. Perhaps, in places I couldn't see, he had already crossed the line for Serena, time and again. "Rocky." After a long pause, when I finally spoke, I realized how firm my voice could be. "Let's break up." Rocky froze for a moment, then looked up again, confusion in his eyes. "Is that really necessary, Haley?" His emotions shifted, and finally, as if thinking of something, he sighed, a hint of helplessness in his tone. "Haley, are you just looking for me to comfort you? When did you become this childish? Between Serena and me, you don't understand. Stop making a fuss." Rocky's tone was flat, as if I were just an easy math problem, effortless to solve, yielding the perfect answer. Clearly, he thought my IQ was too low to understand the complexities between him and Serena. He saw no need to explain anything to me, a mere mortal. In his mind, I shouldn't be childish, I should just act as before, pretending nothing had happened, like a pet under his control. Suddenly, I wanted to laugh, but instead, tears slid down to the corners of my mouth. I raised my hand, intending to slap him, but in that instant, I lost all strength. My fingernails grazed his face, leaving a faint scratch. "Rocky, genius? You're just a self-righteous fool." Rocky froze for a second, raising a hand to touch his face. Then, he spoke suddenly. "Does this make you feel better?" Before I could answer, Serena suddenly ran over. When she saw the scratch on Rocky's face, her expression changed, as if she wanted to tear me apart. She stood protectively in front of Rocky, her voice trembling with tears. "Why take it out on me? Why bully Rocky?" Not satisfied with just yelling at me, Serena took 2 steps forward and raised her hand to slap me. I raised my hand to block, and at the moment our fingers touched, I saw a victorious gleam in her eyes. "Ah!" Serena collapsed to the ground, clutching her ankle, but I hadn't even pushed hard. "Haley." I didn't. Rocky and I spoke at the same time, our voices colliding in the air. One was innocent, the other full of anger. "You should know, what happens between us has nothing to do with a third party. You've really disappointed me." The urge to defend myself disappeared in that instant. I watched as Rocky scooped up the crying Serena in his arms. Before turning to leave, he gave me one last glance. His eyes were cold, as if he were looking at a stranger. He rarely showed emotion, but now, because of her, he was breaking his own rules again. They were intertwined, like 2 vines. I suddenly recalled something that happened after the college entrance exams. That time, I was traveling with Rocky, and I came down with a 40-degree fever. I begged him to take me to the hospital, and after hesitating, he finally called an ambulance. "Haley, you can understand me, right?" The ambulance got stuck in traffic, and by the time we reached the hospital, I almost had pneumonia. When my friend Alice heard about it, she cursed Rocky for being heartless, saying he didn't truly love me. Back then, I defended him, saying it wasn't that he didn't love me, it was just his nature. But now, that bullet hit me square between the eyes. How is it that in the same situation, he suddenly forgot about calling an ambulance? I had to admit it. He wasn't incapable of loving. He just didn't care enough to love me. I booked the earliest train back to school for the next day. In New York City, unfamiliar with my surroundings and without any money, I had no choice but to spend the night in a corner of the train station. I fell seriously ill when I returned to school. When I woke up in the hospital, Alice's eyes were red and swollen like walnuts. Haley, I've been telling you, Rocky's no good. Alice had never liked Rocky. She always called me a love-obsessed fool and Rocky a toxic jerk. In the past, I would have argued back immediately. But now, after everything, I no longer had the strength to refute her. I just nodded. Alice, I should have listened to you earlier. As we spoke, my phone rang. It was Rocky's custom ringtone, the one I set for him. Last year, on my birthday, Rocky had promised to grant me any wish. I shamelessly asked him to sing Two Tigers for me, and then set it as my ringtone. He had smiled at me, half exasperated, half indulgent. Back then, I really believed happiness had landed in my hands. I thought Rocky would change for me. I thought we'd become the happiest, most ordinary couple in the world. I let out a bitter smile, feeling the urge to cry again. I hung up and blocked Rocky. Opening WeChat, I saw rare red dots next to his avatar. He asked where I was. Sent a picture of Serena with a cast on her leg. Because of your tantrum, someone got hurt. What happens between us? You shouldn't drag her into it. The green chat bubbles from the past were rare, but this time, they turned white, just to scold me on someone else's behalf. I couldn't hold it in anymore. Tears fell onto my phone screen, one by one. Rocky and I had known each other since middle school, growing up together through our youth. To me, he wasn't just a boyfriend. He was someone I admired, someone I chased after. When I failed an exam, he would clumsily comfort me. Before the college entrance exams, he even made special study notes just for me. The genius who never did his own homework handwrote an entire notebook for me. Holding that notebook, my heart pounded. I asked casually, pretending not to care. Rocky, you put so much effort into this. Do you like me or something? Hiding my true feelings with a joke, my voice trembled. Time passed, minute by minute, and I lost track of how long I waited. Then he suddenly spoke, his tone calm as always, like he was talking about the weather. Yeah, I like you. I looked up at him, stunned. The evening sun bathed his face, half illuminated by the fiery sky. At that moment, I thought he had fallen for me. That's how I became the girlfriend of a genius. The doubts of those around me didn't shake me. I just kept running after him, trailing behind for so long. In half a year, I went from an ordinary university to an Ivy League school. Now, I even had a shot at getting into Rocky's graduate program. I gritted my teeth, doing it all just to be a little closer to him. I was so close to standing by his side. But after all these years of trying, no one had told me that people can change. People do change. The boy who once confessed his love to me under that blazing sky had now fallen for someone else. I typed furiously on my phone, writing a long message, explaining, accusing, cursing. But in the end, I deleted it all, word by word. There's no point, I thought. Rocky, let me kindly explain something to you, genius. This behavior of yours, it's called cheating. After sending that message, I tapped on his profile. Block this user. You will no longer receive messages from them. My finger hovered over the confirm button for what felt like forever. Finally, I pressed it. Then, I buried my face in Alice's arms and cried uncontrollably. There was no more news about Rocky in my life. Heartbreak feels like a long, drawn-out torture, like being cut with a dull blade. Whenever I think of him, my heart tightens suddenly. And it hurts a lot. But after a while, you become numb to the pain. From beginning to end, I did nothing wrong. A person with a clear conscience shouldn't be trapped by the wrong person. I threw myself into my studies, forcing myself not to think about Rocky. But just when I thought I was almost out of the shadow of heartbreak, we got entangled again in a strange way. I didn't expect it. I became famous. It all started when someone on the forum at Rocky's school started shipping him and Serena. The post was quite popular. Most comments were things like, so sweet, and perfect couple. But then, an odd comment appeared. Am I imagining things? Or didn't Rocky have a girlfriend for several years? It stirred up a storm. The comment quickly drew attention. Really? No way. Does that mean Serena is a homewrecker? Don't spread rumors without proof. Rocky has always been alone. There's no trace of a girlfriend anywhere. I'm in the same department as Rocky. He's kind of strange, but I've only ever seen him that close to Serena. To back it up, someone posted countless photos of Rocky and Serena together, standing shoulder to shoulder on stage, participating in campus events, always side by side, always smiling brightly. The comment about me was soon deleted, but the buzz didn't die down. It even spread to other platforms. Rocky and Serena, with their prestigious school backgrounds and campus fame, quickly drew massive attention. A classmate from high school eventually posted a photo of Rocky and me, confirming we had been a couple. What Serena was became clear without needing further explanation. A few hours later, Serena posted a long statement clarifying she wasn't a homewrecker. Not only that, but she also attached 2 photos, one of her ankle wrapped in a cast, the other of Rocky's face with a small injury. And she wrote the following: "For a long time, Rocky has been harassed by this lady. He has expressed discomfort many times. Yet, not only did she not stop, but on Rocky's birthday, she followed him to New York, and when rejected, she lashed out, injuring Rocky and pushing me down, resulting in a fractured ankle. Out of the kindness of knowing each other for so long, Rocky chose not to pursue it further, but we don't want to see this generosity turned into malicious attacks. Haley, may you take care of yourself. The internet is a place where no one takes the time to seek out the truth." That twisted statement turned everything upside down, and it brought the situation to a climax. Serena publicly revealed my name, and since someone had already posted my photo, the netizens quickly dug up all my personal details. They flooded the school forum, calling me a psychopath, saying I was a jealous, ugly cockroach who couldn't stand seeing others happy. A teacher from the academic office found me, gently reminding me, saying my actions had brought too much negative attention to the school. "Haley, the school has no interest in meddling in your personal affairs, but if this continues, you might lose your spot for the exchange program abroad." The school had always had an exchange program abroad. Several teachers had encouraged me to try it, but at the time, I was focused on getting into Rocky's university for grad school, working tirelessly to maintain my grades and credits. Plus, I didn't want to do long distance with Rocky, so I turned down their suggestion. That day, holding my broken laptop, I suddenly had a moment of clarity. 2 hours before the system closed, I submitted my exchange application. With my grades, it should have been a sure thing. But then, all of this happened. The teacher's phone screen was open to Serena's profile. She had updated again. In the photo, she had an 4 in her hand, and you could see a slender hand beside her, preparing her medication. The caption read, "With you by my side, no medicine is too bitter." The comments were full of well wishes for her and the mysterious man. Some even threw in digs at me. Now this is the treatment a real girlfriend gets. I bet someone's turning green with envy. Ha! When I was sick, Rocky would just tell me to drink more water. I looked away from the screen, pulled out my phone, and opened my drafts folder. There, I found the evidence I had painstakingly gathered over 3 sleepless nights. Each piece, proof of the happiness I once shared with Rocky. I had intended to show it to the world on our wedding day. Now, it had become my lifeline. I gently pressed send. "Teacher, you can rest assured now." Not long after I sent the evidence, I received a call from a high school classmate. When I picked up, it was Rocky's voice on the other end. He sounded tired. "Are you done causing trouble, Haley? Delete those things." I laughed and raged. Causing trouble? Because of Serena's lies? I've been harassed online for days, and people give me dirty looks even when I go to the cafeteria. Because of her lies, I was nearly punished by the school and lost my chance to go abroad. And yet, you come here to scold me. Rocky, you and Serena are a perfect match, you both have no shame. There was a brief silence on his end. "You're going abroad? Why didn't I know?" I sneered. "Rocky, don't forget, we've already broken up." Rocky let out a long sigh. "Haley, we didn't break up. There's a lot you don't understand, but I'll explain it all later. For now, just delete those things. Serena's not doing well." Even though I had already given up on Rocky, in that moment, I still felt a deep chill. After everything, he was still trying to placate me. All the pain I had gone through meant nothing to him. The lies about me had spread online for 3 days, and he had said nothing. Yet because Serena wasn't doing well, he came to me, asking for peace. So, he could go online, after all. I couldn't hold back, swore at him, and hung up. After sitting quietly for a while, I dialed the police. If Serena wasn't doing well, then I'd make sure she tasted what it's like to face a lawsuit. Serena's actions already constituted defamation. Under pressure from both the internet and the police, Serena deleted the false content. However, the internet has a long memory. Screenshots of her posts and photos flaunting her relationship were everywhere online. The attention it garnered even exceeded mine at the time. Serena's school also released a statement, saying they would handle the matter seriously. Just as I thought everything was finally getting better and I could focus on preparing to go abroad, I received some devastating news. My spot for the exchange program was cancelled. I repeatedly asked for the reason, but all I got was the teacher's dismissive response. "This is the school's decision, we don't want this to happen either. It's late, you should go now, we're about to leave." The door of the academic office slammed shut. By now, it was late autumn, and a fine drizzle fell from the sky, adding a chill to the air. I looked up. Beneath the streetlight, through the rain, stood a figure I hadn't seen in a while. Rocky. Annoying. I planned to act like I didn't see him and walk away, but he grabbed my wrist tightly. The coldness made me shiver. "Haley." I shook off his hand. "Get lost." He glanced behind me and suddenly said, "If you withdraw the lawsuit now, you might still have a chance." I froze. Half a month ago, I had filed a private lawsuit, taking Serena to court. They had proposed a private settlement, but I refused. In that moment, everything clicked. "Is this Serena's doing?" Rocky only said, "I warned you before. If you drop the lawsuit, I'll speak to the teachers on your behalf." I sneered. "Aren't you afraid Serena will be upset if you speak for me? After all, breaking up a marriage is worse than breaking up a temple. I wouldn't want to see you two poor lovebirds torn apart." Rocky shook his head, his expression conflicted. "It's not that. I won't end up with Serena. Just listen to me, all right?" Listen to him? I couldn't stop myself from trembling all over. I raised my hand, and the slap that should have landed long ago finally hit Rocky's face. His head turned to one side, and he didn't move for a long time. Rocky would never understand that I didn't fall for a genius. The moment I truly fell for him might have been when he protected a bullied girl in an alley, or when he bought out everything from an old lady's stall on a rainy night. That was the Rocky I knew, cold on the surface, but full of justice. But people change. The boy who once stood tall and proud, never compromising, had now completely rotted away. Withdraw the lawsuit? Never. Do whatever you want to me. I believe in the endurance of truth. And stop coming to see me, Rocky. I'm not the only one with standards. A man touched by someone else? Disgusting. Rocky tried to grab me again. It seemed he realized something, his voice sharp and urgent. "Haley." I kicked him hard. The thud of my shoe hitting his body was dull. I heard him grunt in pain, but he still didn't let go. "Rocky, don't make me hate you." The man behind me fell silent. Slowly, very slowly, he loosened his grip on my hand. I didn't look back as I ran into the rain. I'll never tell Rocky that just the day before he came to see me, I received a private message. It was from someone who claimed to be Rocky's senior in the same lab. He asked if I knew why Rocky cared so much about Serena. At first, I didn't plan to reply, but he sent a few more messages on his own. "Check out who Serena's father is, and you'll be surprised. Who wouldn't want a good father-in-law and a bright future? If Serena liked me, maybe I'd be publishing papers like crazy too. You've probably never had the experience of working hard for something only to have it snatched away by someone else, right? I've felt that pain many times. We're all victims." At the time, I didn't want to believe it because I thought that, at the very least, Rocky's academic abilities were trustworthy. After all, he was a genius. But a vague sense of doubt crept into my mind. I looked up Rocky's supervisor, and he shared the same last name as Serena. In the photo, the man wore gold-rimmed glasses and smiled kindly. In his face, I could see traces of Serena. When I saw Rocky at the door, I instinctively started recording. Now, that recording was quietly stored in my phone. On the screen, Rocky Sr. had sent me another message. He was sitting on the rooftop, the abyss yawning beneath his feet. "He won't let me graduate. I don't want to live anymore." My fingers twitched, and this time, I replied, "If you die, you get nothing." Yes, we are victims, but who says we can only sit and wait for doom? I got in touch with Rocky's senior, Peter. Fortunately, he had kept a lot of evidence. Because of my previous public war with Serena, my account had garnered quite a bit of attention. For the traffic, we organized the evidence. We posted it on my account along with the recording. Top University Ph.D. Students oppressed by their advisor, academic power abuse against an innocent girl. Any one of these topics could go viral instantly. Rocky's school quickly responded, suspending all of Serena's father's duties. That day, Rocky went mad trying to contact me, his voice hoarse on the phone. "Haley, how could you? How could you? I smiled lightly. On the day of the trial, the weather was perfect, with clear blue skies. The court found Serena guilty of defamation and sentenced her to 1 year of probation. She broke down in tears in the courtroom. I wonder if she ever regretted going this far for a man. On the same day, the school also announced its decision regarding Serena's father. He was removed from all positions and had his teaching license revoked. All the students in his lab were transferred to other advisors, except for Rocky. After an investigation, it turned out that out of the 7 papers Rocky had published, only 3 were ones he had actually worked on. Clinging to Serena had brought him many benefits. Once the truth came out, the whole school was in an uproar. The campus idol had turned into a thief, despised by all. The once brilliant prodigy had finally fallen into the mud. No one saw Rocky again after he dropped out. Some say he went to work behind the scenes at a big company. Others say he returned to his small hometown to deliver takeout. No one knew what was true. Not long after, my spot for the exchange program was reinstated. As I passed through security, I glanced back. For a brief moment, I thought I saw a familiar figure in the crowd. But I didn't turn back again, and I didn't dwell on who it might have been. This time, I was headed toward a future I had fought for myself. Whoa, Haley, are you really getting married? To that loser senior from back then? Peter, sitting in the driver's seat, twitched his lips. I burst out laughing and explained to Alice on the other end of the call. Not a loser, he has a name, Peter, the CEO of Galaxy Group. After all these years, it's about time. I'm not joking, you have to come and be my bridesmaid. When I first went abroad, unfamiliar with everything, Peter helped me a lot. Gradually, we became close. A year later, Peter successfully graduated with his Ph.D. That night, the 6'1" man bawled like a child, calling me his savior, the God who gave him a second chance at life. Of course, he said he'd be even more grateful if that God would agree to date him. I accepted his confession, not just because of his touching words, but because he is a kind, down-to-earth person. After we started dating, our relationship remained stable. When my exchange program ended, I stayed in the U.S. to pursue a master's degree. Peter chose to start a business, founding Galaxy Group with a few of his former colleagues. 2 more years passed, and after finishing my studies, I decided to return home. Peter's company was doing well, and we came back to prepare for the wedding. On the phone, Alice marveled at how time changes things. She paused, then said, "Did you know? Rocky is getting married too." I softly replied with an "oh." Inside, I felt no waves of emotion, but Peter seemed a bit flustered. He quickly grabbed the phone, hurriedly said, "Goodbye," to Alice, and hung up. "Darling, we have several more bridal shops to visit. We need to hurry, or we won't make it." I didn't call him out for changing the subject, just smiled lightly. "All right, I'll follow your lead." Vivida is a world-renowned bridal brand. 6 months ago, I saw a masterpiece in a magazine, said to be the chief designer's magnum opus. I fell in love at first sight. This time, I came specifically to try it on. We had an appointment, but when we arrived at the store, we were stopped. The store clerk looked conflicted. "Could you two wait a moment? There's a bit of a situation inside." Despite her vague words, I could already make out the heated argument inside. "It's just a stupid wedding dress. Why can't I try it on? You snobs." A woman's voice screamed angrily, while the clerk tried to soothe her in a gentle tone. "Ma'am, this dress has already been reserved by another customer." "Shut up, you bitch. You think you're better than me? Ma'am, if you continue to make a scene, we'll have to call security." The voice sounded oddly familiar. The next moment, the woman was dragged out by security, still swearing. I finally saw her face, Serena. When she saw me, her curses halted, and she stood there frozen. She looked much thinner, darker too, nothing like the vibrant, arrogant girl I once knew. If she was here, then the person inside must be. A tall figure emerged from the shop. It was Rocky. He had gained some weight, his ill-fitting clothes adding to his tired demeanor. Gone was the youthful energy he once had. When our eyes met, he instinctively took a step back. The store clerk approached us apologetically. "Sorry for the wait, Miss Haley. The dress you reserved is ready. Please, come in." I nodded, not sparing a glance at the two of them, pulling Peter along with me. Vivida's masterpiece lived up to its reputation. Standing in front of the mirror, my breath almost stopped. I rarely use the word dazzling to describe a piece of clothing, but this dress, it had a breathtaking beauty. There was a clatter as Peter dropped his cup, his mouth slightly open. I smiled and gently tapped his hand. "Lost in it?"
"Yeah."
"Lost in it." Peter's eyes were slightly red. "This is the one. How did I get so lucky to marry someone like you?" There he goes again with his exaggerations. Whoever said tech guys lack romance? Before I could say anything, a loud shout from outside interrupted us. Rocky, are you out of your mind? You still like her? Look at yourself now. Who else would want you but me? Do you think she still cares about you? You have to stay with me. Even if you die, you'll die with me. You owe my family that much. Serena was screaming hysterically, hitting Rocky as she cried. But Rocky remained unmoved, his eyes locked straight on Peter and me. Peter smirked and stood in front of me. I turned to the clerk. Aren't you going to handle this? The clerk snapped back to reality and immediately called security. The guards tried to pull Serena away, but she started rolling on the ground, throwing a fit. A crowd gathered, watching the spectacle unfold. With an audience, Serena became even more dramatic, crying to Rocky. Peter and I just stood there, arms crossed, watching the show. Finally, Rocky couldn't take it anymore. Can you stop? He kicked her hand off his pants and pushed through the crowd, heading for the exit. Serena froze, staring at her hand. The show was over. The crowd dispersed, leaving Serena alone, sitting on the floor by the shop's entrance. In that moment, I wondered if she regretted choosing Rocky, but I didn't know. What I did know was that people must bear the consequences of their choices. I squeezed Peter's hand. His warm, steady hand was a reminder of all we had been through together. There was no looking up, no chasing after one another. Perhaps, this was the kind of love that was truly meant for me. All right, this is the one. Let's go home. You promised to make me some ribs. Peter held my hand, his voice tender. Sure. The end. If you like Puppy's story, please follow and like it. Updated every morning at 9 a.m.